Welcome to Rocket Ship, the home of epic React Native content. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and once again, your only host of today. Last week, I introduced you to the new format of this show, and this week, it is kind of the first version of the new show, because last week was more like a general overview. So today, I want to share some interesting news around React, around Expo, around AI technology, but also give you a bit of a look behind the scenes, what's been going on in my life in terms of new projects, updates on existing projects, and technology that I'm currently trying out. So a mix of a lot of interesting technologies in today's episode. First of all, I want to say thank you to a couple of you who replied to the previous episode where I announced this change, and I think you kind of like that change to a shorter episode. So I will try to keep this below, 20 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever the news are. So I will actually, don't worry, bring back some interviews. I have some guests planned in the pipeline that might eventually come onto the podcast, but for the moment, just some shorter episodes. So here we go, let's dive into what's new in React land. And usually it's a good idea to just go to the X profile of Evan Bacon if you want to know what's currently bleeding edge and going on, because he's been trying out all the latest things. That includes React 19.1. So in December, React 19 was released. Actually, it's a bit complicated because with the current version of Expo SDK 52, you by default use React 18. Okay, all these numbers are getting really insane. But you can use React 19 if you use a canary version of Expo SDK 52. With Expo SDK 53, you will then have access to the latest features of React as well as React Native 19. And with the current Expo version 52, you can, of course, already use React Native 0.78, but also only in the canary version. It's a bit confusing, but just wait 2 more months, then we will be settled. App.js is at the end of May, and then Expo SDK 53 will be released. But back to React 19.1, Evan showcased a pretty neat feature. All the things that I talk about, there will be links in the show notes, so you can quickly check it out on X. With previous versions of React, pretty much all previous versions, you had these massive error logs, and sometimes they just don't make any sense. The most common example is text strings must be rendered within a text component. You just can't figure out in which of your 100 files you have added an A without a text. So this, for example, would be improved with a new feature called owner stacks. So this is a new feature of React 19.1, which allows you to, and let me read this. An owner stack is a string representing the components that are directly responsible for rendering a particular component. You can log owner stacks when debugging or use owner stacks to enhance error overlays or other development tools. And of course, Evan Bacon did this in a great fashion. He showed an example of before and after, and I think we will all love that. So in the next Expo SDK version, I think error logs will finally and hopefully once and for all be a lot better and a lot more readable and save you a lot of time. So that also gave me the idea to talk a bit about what's coming with Expo SDK 53. Because over the last month, I had many people. I talked to Evan a couple of times. I talked to other people. I talked with Beto on the podcast. You should definitely check out that episode. And I picked up some things that will be included in Expo SDK 53. So I just want to summarize a couple of these things that I found up front. So the first thing, as we just heard, will be React 19 and the owner stacks, so improved error messages. React 19 also brought that cool use hook. So if you haven't used React 19, there's a hook that you can use to use. Okay, this use thing is just as confusing as the numbers thing. I get it. But with the use hook, you can use a promise or something quite easily in your component at the root level. So usually you would have to wrap that in use effect and but with use, you can easily use that. That also makes it easier for server actions and server components to directly include them in your components. So the use hook will be definitely something that many people will start using. If you're already on React 19, of course, you might be already using it, but it will be more easily when Expo SDK 53 is released. On top of that, we will have React Native version 0.79 probably included in Expo SDK 53. I think currently we're at 78, but until the end of May, I'm pretty sure we're going to be at 79, or maybe at version 1. That will be a big surprise for everyone, right? But I don't think that's going to happen right now. In terms of other things that will be included in SDK 53, there will be built-in support for web workers on the web. And that also means, as Beto has shared, SQLite support for web. I'm really excited about that one because whenever I use SQLite, and I use it quite often in my apps actually, if I just want like some local data, and then I want to try like the web version, and it's like, oh, you can't use this module on the web. And I'm like, this should be possible without me like writing a completely different provider for web and having a fallback. So with 53, we will have SQLite support for the web, and that will make debugging and working on the web, at least for me, a lot easier. Let me know if you're also looking forward to that. And the thing that probably most people will be excited about is something called Expo UI. Beto talked about that on the podcast as well. This is pretty much an Expo package of UI components that will expose the native Swift UI or is it like Jetpack Compose stuff directly to your React Native app. So things like a list or a card or a button or whatever you got in Swift UI will be easily accessible in your React Native application through the Expo UI package. This one is something that is probably the biggest hurdle for new developers in the React Native world. At least when I got started with React Native, my first question was, okay, cool, but where are the components? This is just a text and just a scroll view, and yeah, it's cool that it renders to native, but where's all the styling? So with the Expo UI component package or library or whatever it will be called, I think new developers will have a great point of entry to React Native, but just getting started. It's probably not for everyone and for every use case, but Expo UI will definitely be a big thing over the next weeks and months and probably even years to come. On top of that, I read between the lines and I saw that there's an Expo background task package which is in beta. So that is a little hint that it's probably coming out with the next major release. And there's also Expo Maps, which is now not just like a node to install a community plugin, but there will be actually an Expo SDK Maps package, which automatically uses Google Maps or Apple Maps on the according platforms. So Expo 53, I think, is going to be big with React 19, React Native 0.79, better error messages, SQLite Web, background tasks, maps, and Expo UI. And these are only the things that already are like known. I'm wondering what else they will present. We'll most likely see it at the app.js at the end of May, and you will hear about it first here on the podcast or on my YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe in both places. Bada bing, bada boom. To give this show a little bit of structure, I want to introduce some categories. So the first one was the React Native Radar with all the news and updates around React Native and React. We're coming now to technology I'm testing. And there are 2 points in this category that I noted down over the last week. So the first thing is the Vercel AI SDK. I think I already hinted at this last week. I'm building a new application, more on that in a second. And I didn't want to like start over again and use OpenAI and use it in the API routes and And I wanted to have it a bit easier. So I picked the Vercel AI SDK. And so far, it has been a bit light and shadow, I'd say. It works really great. It has streaming built in. The documentation, as I said in the last episode, actually has examples that use Expo API routes, which is pretty cool. And they mostly work. So the problem is that they recently updated their SDK and they changed a bit about the response format and how they return stuff. And they told us that it changed and how it now looks, but not really how you use it now with Expo and other technologies. So I was a bit lost at that point, so I had to fall back to the previous version, which still works great. So I get streaming out of the box quite easily. I get completion, so just like sending one message to AI and get one reply. All of that works really, really great with the Vercel AI SDK and some hooks they provide. Everyone using Expo and API routes should really give this a try, because I feel like we shouldn't implement and re-implement that stuff all the time. So I'm still testing this, and I will work on a video for this, probably release around, I don't know, end of April or so. Beyond that, I'm also testing or using a lot currently the RevenueCat Paywall editor. I have a link to RevenueCat in the show notes as well. I'm now an affiliate for RevenueCat, so if you use that link to sign up, I might later down the road get some money, so be aware of that, but this won't hurt your experience with RevenueCat. And to be honest, I think RevenueCat is just the best way to implement in-app purchases in your React Native applications, period. Probably even for iOS and Android. Currently, after doing it for multiple of my apps, setting up the products in like Apple and Google, and then doing RevenueCat and going to my app, it's probably like an hour of my time, maybe just half an hour, because I know like which keys to use. RevenueCat currently makes it really easy to like pre-select your previous keys and just really quickly go through the dialog. But what I want to tell you is that they have a paywall editor, and it's now in version 2, and it comes with really nice templates. You should check this out on RevenueCat. I'm pretty sure they have some announcement post about this, but you can also see it in your account when you set it up. So a paywall is pretty much this thing that slides up when you say, hey, go pro, get our epic features for just $100 per month or $50 per year, because that's a big discount. So that's the stuff that you can do with a paywall editor. And you can define your paywall in the browser. You can do all the text, you can add the packages and the buttons and the colors and whatnot. They have like, let me count, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20, 21 templates already that look pretty legit. And the best part about this is, yeah, you can customize them in the web, but how you use them in React Native is even cooler, because it's exactly like one line of displaying a specific paywall in your application from the React Native purchases UI package. When I first saw this, I was like, wait, this feels like cheating. Is this allowed? But it's absolutely allowed. I have multiple apps like this in the App Store. Everyone's using it, and it's so cool because it helps you so you don't have to implement the whole purchase dialog page. Yes, you can still do it, but it's always a bit tedious to like fetch the right offerings, the packages, display the pricing in the right places, and have the right currencies everywhere and the right strings. And Apple is really picky about that stuff. Oh, and did you forget that restore button? Or have you included the privacy links? Oh, your app is rejected once again. So all of these things will be handled pretty nicely if you use one of those paywalls. I've been using them the whole time. I will continue to use them for the next application, because that makes testing new things from the outside without an update actually also a lot easier. The next category is called Tiny Wins, and I want to share some tiny wins of the week. I got 2 points in this category as well for you. The first one is I actually talked to people from Google. I think I never did this before, and there was like a very official vibe to that. Although I talked to that one person before, hey, if you're listening, there was sort of like an official vibe to that meeting. It was quite hard to set it up, and they had some like disclaimers and yada yada, and I think I never really got in touch or in contact with anyone from Google before like that. So it was an interesting experience, and we had a great chat. We talked about potential collaboration ideas, and I think it was a great talk because I'm now also in contact with 2 new services, technologies, I don't know what to call them, which could result in really amazing tutorials, things that you've probably not yet seen on YouTube, especially because I like working with React Native and mobile apps, and I like to bring all these functionalities from AI, whether it's Gemini or OpenAI, into React Native. I think really mobile devices are perfect for all these things, and there's so much that we can still explore. And yeah, I'm in contact with these things. They're called, I will update you on that later, but if that works out, you're gonna be really, really happy about seeing what's possible with Gemini and these services. My second win for the week is a small one, but for me it's actually a big one. Like it's a small win for mankind, but a big win for Simon, and that is I made sales with my own apps. Now, you might think that, oh, Simon is so successful. He has this YouTube channel and Twitter, and he has a podcast and Galaxies and all of that stuff. But my apps haven't made a lot of money in the past. I think over the last years, I never really focused on making apps. And only in December or January, I started making this a priority for myself this year to build up sort of another income stream from my applications. I wouldn't call this an income stream yet, but in the last 28 days, I made $77. That's probably not exactly the effort I put into these apps, but there's a more important piece about this, and that is with my apps some of them are okay. So I have mostly two applications. My Matrix Manager, which is like an Eisenhower Matrix Manager, and I have a Quick Track Calorie Tracker, which I use personally as well. Those two applications make most of my income. And they're by far feature complete or perfect, but people are already paying for these applications, and this gives me and hopefully you as well some hope, because you always see these big successful stories, people making 1K and then they make 5K and then suddenly they have a launch with 10K MRR instantly, and it doesn't have to be like that all the time. There are many creators that just like make probably $200, $500, 600, and then they repeat that process for multiple applications. You don't have to make a giant amount of money from one app. You can also stack these small apps. And just making $1 or $10 from an app is for me incredible, because it shows that some people somewhere in the world valued what I created. And again, you might think, oh, Simon, you have thousands of people watching YouTube and listening to the podcast, but it's different. I don't know why, but it's absolutely different. So if somebody really pays for that app that I made, it is a different feeling and it feels really great. So that's $17 I made last week. Oh, I actually made 2 more, so it's almost $20 that I made over the last 7 days. Gives me hope for the applications and for future applications that I develop, and I hope it will spark a little flame in you as well to go for mobile apps, because I'm a believer that there's still a lot of money to be made on the App Store, even if it's a crowded place, even if there are many duplicate applications, there will always be chances for small indie creators. That also brings me to the next topic, build in public. I want to share more of the things that I build here in public. I usually do all of this behind the scenes, but this podcast is now a bit lighter format, and I want to share what I'm currently working on. So I teased this a couple of times. I'm working on an AI therapy application where you can have chats with AI therapeutes. What's it called in English? I don't know. Yeah, probably like that. But anyway, the progress on that app is slow because last weekend we were traveling, and next week we will be traveling again. In between, I create a lot of other videos and content, so it's more like here an hour, there an hour, and I don't really have a lot of focus time for that app yet. However, with AI, with Cursor, with sort of vibe coding, I've come a long way. I've done a pretty nice onboarding setup for that application as I think. The inside area, I still need to focus on the chat and make it better, chat history, a bit about the user profile and some other screens. But overall, I'm quite happy. Again, I've set up the RevenueCat Paywall as well. So things are going great for that app, and I've learned a bunch of things already. Besides that, I'm working on a captions clone. So you might know that application, the captions app. It's for like AI captions for your app. This one will be in cooperation with a lot of companies, but we will use Convex on the backend. I'm really excited about that. And in general, it's going to be really great. Just like the first 2 screens working on that for a day, it was amazing. And there's so much I want to show you in that video. And as I said, over the next like 1.5, 2 weeks, during the Easter time here in Germany, we'll be traveling. We'll be around Denmark. So if you're from Denmark, if you're in Copenhagen, say hey. Probably when the episode goes live, we've already left Copenhagen. But anyway, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a great time over there. And finally, build in public also means I'm sharing not only the good parts, So last week or 2 weeks ago, I released a video about peak productivity with Expo. And I just wanted to express my sincere enjoyment of using Expo Router, Expo API routes, native Wind, EAS hosting, combining all of that, and just the productivity gains that you get from that. And I actually got many comments saying, is this sponsored by Expo? And oh, Simon, you don't have to make Expo so good. And I was like, no, this is not sponsored by Expo. Just like this podcast isn't sponsored by Expo or anything. It's just my own point of view, because I think Expo just makes it really, really easy. And these packages like Expo Router and API routes and soon RSC just make the developer life so much easier. And Native Wind helps me to move so much faster with the styling of my application. I'm just genuinely in love with all these tools, and I'm sharing my enthusiasm about these tools, but sometimes that's maybe a bit too much. And so people ask me if I was sponsored by Expo. No, I wasn't. I'm just deeply in love with all the tools of Expo and React Native. Finally, coming to the last category, trending in technology. We want to open up our point of view. We will not only talk about React Native, but some related things. And for the moment, most of that is actually AI related. So I just want to share quickly a couple of AI related news to you. Recently, OpenAI released a new version of 4.0, which includes new image generation, and it just blew up completely on X. Everyone was especially creating these Ghibli art style images, which is like Japanese, not cartoon, what's it, like manga style? I don't know, I can't explain it, but just look for it, you will see it on X. But the big thing was really that you can now generate images with text on them, and they're actually really, really good. That means you can do like marketing material and all sorts of crazy things. Previously it was like hieroglyphic stuff when you did something with text, and now it's getting so much better. And in the same, now like 1 or 2 weeks later, Midjourney, which I previously always used for image generation, came out with version 7. Version 7 is an improvement, once again, of course, better images, faster images, and they also introduced personalization, so you can have like your own styles. I was always dreaming about like setting up my own, let's say, a book style, and then have characters for that book in a specific style generated. I think that will be now possible with Midjourney version 7. And overall, I really liked Midjourney and how it started. It started like on Discord, on the Discord line as commands, and now you can also use it in the browser. And I think it's still one of the best ways to generate images. You get really creative art out of Midjourney. Beyond that, I've been playing a lot with Gemini. So Gemini 2.0 Flash came out just a couple of weeks ago. Is now broadly available with multimodal reasoning and native tool use. This is the interesting thing that I also mentioned before, like native devices are made for this stuff. We can use voice instantly, we can use images and video instantly and feed that to LLM. And if you connect this in the right ways, there are like infinite possibilities for new apps, new businesses, and overall in general, just so many cool things. I've seen some examples with like real-time voice and just showing the camera and asking, hey, what is this? What is that? And Gemini is explaining this. And on top, they've now also in the Google AI Studio opened up Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is like their best search model. It's a bit more expensive than the rest, but it's still cheaper than like Claude or OpenAI. And you can actually also base this on Google search. So my contact told me about this. And I think that would be a really cool example for a video. And I think we might do this in a future episode as a tutorial, or also talk about this on the podcast. So if you're interested, I highly recommend check out Gemini. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm using it also for my AI therapy application. And we will talk more about this in the future. So I really hope to bring in my friend in a future episode. Then we have an episode with someone from Google. That feels really cool. So if you've been listening, we will definitely make this do. But before that, I'm going to take a little vacation time, keep on working on my app. I hope you're gonna have a great time as well. If you got any questions, always hit me up on X, and otherwise, I will catch you in our next episode. Thanks for joining today's episode. My goal is to share interesting stories and insights into the world of React Native development. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And on Spotify and Apple, you can leave up to a 5-star review. Because podcasts, and especially niche podcasts like this, are hard to find, subscribing and leaving a review does help me a lot. On top of that, check out my React Native courses on galaxies.dev that cover a variety of topics from getting started to building and publishing your mobile app. Finally, you can share today's episode with a friend or colleague who would enjoy the topic of the show. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, find me on X or leave a comment on YouTube. And last but not least, thank you for listening and happy coding, Simon.